Yes, I can hear you.
All right, thank you.
I'm all set now. I went in and did the settings. Are you taking questions?
Yes, so we'll just have to ask, you'll just have to ask to unmute if we have raised
Okay,
hands.
so excuse me, would you be running that part and you want me to just let people in?
I just have to come down and get my, yeah, I can do that. I'll
And
come
I'm
down.
gonna let people in.
Okay, we're just still wait, yep, we can do that.
Should I go up there? Hey, good evening, everybody. My name is Michael Herbert. I'm town manager, and with me here is Assistant Town Manager Jim Ball. And we're here to talk about the town meeting warrant coming up next Wednesday, a week away. Our annual town meeting will be on May 7th, 2025 at Ashland High School in the auditorium, starting at 7 p.m. As is usually the case, I'll give my opening spiel just about how important town meeting is. Town meeting is the legislative body here in the town of Ashland. And as we have an open town meeting format, any registered voter has the ability to come in and vote on items that are of general importance to the community. That includes everything from the budget to zoning articles to CPA articles. There's a whole gamut. And so what we typically like to do, and what we've tried to do ever since I started as town manager, is use opportunities like tonight's forum to answer any questions people might have about the warrant. We do have some people in the audience and on Zoom. And then that way, you're a little bit more prepared, hopefully, when you walk into town meeting. And again, hopefully you do come to town meeting, but hopefully you'll be a little bit more informed, a little bit more educated about the issues. And again, I'm here to answer any questions that you might have, along with Jen here, related to any of the items on the warrant. And what we'll do is we'll just go through them one by one. And this year we have, 20? 20. Actually, that's a little bit more than what we have had recently. So a little bit longer warrant than what we typically have in May, but that's okay. We got a lot of business to do. So that being said, I won't waste any more time. Jen, you got anything you want to add? No? You good? Okay. And so, again, the way we'll do this is I'll go through each warrant article, describe it a little bit, give you the details. I'll open it up for questions, and hopefully we'll have the answers. If not, we will find it and get that to you rather directly. So without further ado, I will start with Article 1, which is town reports. This is an opportunity for different stakeholders within the town to just give an overall report. I should say an overall very brief report, according to the moderator, on issues that might be happening in town. I do anticipate to have 2 or 3 reports this year. I will be giving one just on the overall status of things in town, and then I'll have a special budgetary message. Our comprehensive plan committee might have an update as well, so I think that's still to be determined. But yes, that's Article 1. I would assume there's no questions about Article 1. I see some shaking heads. Okay, great. Moving on to some of the more meatier articles. This Article number 2 is a transfer from the General Stabilization Fund in the amount of $2,256,000. A little bit more than that, actually, but big number. And our General Stabilization Fund is what we also call our rainy day fund. We use this to, basically the way our policies are set up is when we have reductions in revenue, we have the ability to access this fund to make up the gap and make up some of that missing revenue so we don't have to cut into services. So unfortunately, even though we don't have a reduction in revenue this year, what has happened is that we've seen an increase in expenses that exceeded the revenue that we're going to get by quite a bit. And we'll talk a little bit more about the expenses when we get to the budget. But long story short, this is what is needed. This amount is what is needed to help balance the budget. Now, I do anticipate that this would all be replenished when free cash is appropriated in the fall. But that being said, it's a pretty large number, which, again, I'll get to more of when we get to the budget, but I'll explain a little bit more about just kind of the situation, the budgetary situation, but that is Article 2. Anything you want to add, JB? Any questions from the audience or here in the room or from Zoom? I will do that. So yeah, if you are on Zoom, I would just ask you to raise your hand so we know to unmute you, and we'll call on you. All right. Seeing no questions, we'll move on to Article number 3, which is a transfer from the Special Education Stabilization Fund to the general fund in the amount of $300,000. Again, this is money that is being transferred from the Special Education Stabilization Fund to help balance our FY26 budget. Part of the reason why our FY26 budget has such a deficit is because some of the special education costs or out-of-district special education costs that we are incurring as part of educating our children here in Ashland. So we have this Special Education Stabilization Fund set up to provide basically that type of support whenever we do encounter that, and so that's what this article is about. Any questions? And again, I should point out that this will this actually should be replenished as well during the free cash appropriation in the fall. All right, seeing no questions, I'll move to Article 4, which is the fiscal year 2026 budget. The only reason I'm pausing is I'm really trying to think about the best way to frame this, because there is quite a bit of discussion that has led up to this warrant article, and there will probably be discussion at town meeting, and certainly there will be a lot of discussion within the community afterwards. And I'll explain why. So this year, again, we had a pretty substantial deficit, meaning that the revenue that we had received outpaced our expenses to a pretty significant tune. Now, this isn't the first year that this has happened. This is actually the second year in a row where we have faced this situation. And so what we've chosen to do, instead of making cuts in services, which are already pretty lean, and our staff, which is already pretty lean, we've chosen to supplement the revenue utilizing money from stabilization funds and other resources, grant funds if they're available, ARPA funds, which is American Rescue Plan Act funds. Essentially, we have tried to do everything we can and basically utilize any tool that we have in order to not make cuts to staff and services here in town. That being said, what we're doing is not a sustainable practice. This is, again, when you're talking about deficits of, $200,000-$300,000, those are generally manageable. But when you start talking about deficits that are in the millions, 2 millions, you have a structural issue that needs to be addressed. And so, again, that is the way we chose to handle it this year, was by using one-time funds like the stabilization funds to help bridge that gap. But moving forward, we're going to need to have a more robust conversation about how to fix that structural deficit. And that is going to be accomplished either by finding more revenue, and there's a couple of different ways that we do that, or we will have to look at making cuts in services again. So that's just kind of like my general overall preface to discussion about the overall line items here in the budget. And what I'll do is I'll go through just kind of some of the highlights on the budget in terms of larger items, and then I'll open it up for questions. So if you have an opportunity to look through the warrant, the latest warrant, you'll see some of the detail associated with the budget. And just looking at some of the larger items that you see here, one, you'll see a pretty large increase on a percentage basis with the assessor's office, and that is essentially to change over the software that we use for assessing. What we currently have is only used by about 10 out of 351 communities in the Commonwealth. It's not very well supported. It has quite a few issues bridging with some of our other software systems. And again, a lot of municipalities are facing the same issue, which is why they have moved away from the system that we currently have, like we are now, looking at moving towards an additional system, or a new system, I should say, and so that's what accounts for the increase in that budget. Moving forward, looking at a significant increase in health insurance, which I think is really kind of the primary driver of one of our budget deficits. So when we first moved to the Group Insurance Commission, which is the statewide conglomerate that purchases health insurance, we moved from a smaller purchasing group. We saw significant savings, not just at the outset, but the rate of increase was significantly less than what we were experiencing with the consortium that we were with before. However, over the last several years, that has changed, and we are seeing significant increases in health insurance through the Group Insurance Commission, the GIC. This year, we're looking at an increase of almost 13%, which total of $1 million. So you can see that's a pretty significant amount, and a big primary factor in driving the budget deficit. Additionally, even though it's a small amount from a dollar perspective, on a percentage basis, our unemployment compensation insurance is going up. Employee retirement is actually going up 6%. Again, that's an obligation that we must pay. So I think, one way to think about these is when we think about the budget, we think about things called fixed costs, and we think about things called discretionary costs. And when we talk about, if we are in a place where we have to make cuts, what can we cut? Well, unfortunately, we can't cut the fixed costs, the obligations that we are required to pay, and those make up about 85% of the budget. So we don't really have that much discretionary things in the budget from which to cut. So that's just kind of more of an aside about our whole budgetary picture in and of itself. But trying to look to see if there's anything else people might be interested in on the general fund side. If not, I'll move on to the enterprise funds, and really the one I want to highlight is the water enterprise fund, which is actually going up almost $600,000. So the good news is that that is directly attributable to infrastructure improvements that we're planning to make, including a replacement of our ozone filter, which is a critical component of our water filtration system, what keeps our water clean, what keeps our water pure, what keeps our water healthy. Also included in this are replacement of water mains, which many of which have not been replaced since they were first put in the ground. And if you follow the town's social media pages, you will see very frequent references to water main breaks, and those can cause all kinds of issues, not the least of which for our staff, who basically it's like all hands on deck. And, some of these fixes can take, over 12 hours. Sometimes, I've seen them, when it's a hard time finding the break, sometimes it can even take upwards of 24 hours to fix. But it's just a long story short, we need to make a lot of replacements in our water main infrastructure. So we've placed some money in the budget there. I could spend a lot of time going through each and every one of these, but in the essence of time, I will not, and I will open it up to questions. Mark, please come to the microphone at the podium.
The original warrant I had that I was at the finance meeting for does not have all that information.
No, we tried to throw a curveball at you, Mark. But you can have that. That's my gift to you, right there.
Wait a second. It's like doing Christmas customer service. I'm traded in the old
There you go.
for the new.
You got, what do you think the trade-in value of this is, Mark?
Recyclable.
Yeah.
It's basically, it's full of numbers. That was only a short paragraph.
Yeah.
That's all.
Oh, okay.
That was easy.
Anything else? And anybody on Zoom who has a question, again, please raise your hand. if I had known there were no questions, I would have gone on and on and on and on. Yes, Joan?
Junkin Friday, One Shore Road.
Yeah.
The Historical Commission, speaking as a resident. So we seem to be on a water ban most of the year. So does any of this help with that? Is there any way to increase our water, or is this part of this is just maintenance right now?
Yeah, this piece is just maintenance, Joan.
Okay.
I will say that over the last couple of years, we were able to connect to the MWRA and complete that connection, which right now can only be used as a supplemental connection. And the rules say that it's only when it gets down, the water level gets down to a certain level, that we can turn that on. Now, the way the structure is set up, the way it is right now, is that it wouldn't help any of our water, or things like water bans or issues like that. Town meeting could in the future, I'm sure after some analysis, could vote on changing those rules to where we could turn that water on more frequently, or have less restrictive practices in place before we turn it on. And so that might help with the water ban issue. But again, that would need to be a vote at town meeting.
But there's no new, like a new well or a new anything in town that can be brought online that would help?
No, not that I'm
Long-term.
aware of right now.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right, Mark. See, Joan, you inspired people to.
Yes, and like that I can say on this side too, it's easier to do it this way. Now with the numbers, Article 4. For the Economic Development Special Revenue Funds of $338,593 for available meals tax. Is there anything that can inspire any sort of economical growth from this?
So part of that budget includes the business incentive program.
Is that the Ashland Business Association and those people?
No. So the business incentive program, Mark. So that includes a number of programs like our amenities financing program, sign and facade. So it's a way, again, to help incentivize businesses to come here. And so what happens is when a business wants to move here, but for whatever reason, the expenses to move here, whether it's tenant fit out costs or rental costs or anything, make it prohibitive from them to move here, we have that tool available to help bridge that gap. And so we've used it very successfully with things like Sub-Zero ice cream. I'm just thinking about downtown right now, but Sub-Zero ice cream, I believe Crossroads. Did Crossroads take advantage of it? Crossroads took advantage of it, Clover Road. So you're seeing a lot of economic growth happening in town, and a lot of it is being facilitated with that fund.
You're not going to be surprised with my answer to that.
Okay.
The profits and nonprofits that is here in downtown may not help each future growth of Gen Zers coming up in businesses that can have future endeavors.
Okay.
It's
That's an interesting perspective.
The stronger committees together, sustainability is one. I had a good talk with them last night, and we had a good meeting about that last night. And the planning board, which is losing 2 plans by the end of the summer. We already lost one. And Jen's leaving and going to her future spot.
Yeah, you don't have to remind me, Mark.
I know. But I know I won't have this much time with our moderator, the patient moderator we have. So I'm just this is why I'm here tonight,
Okay.
to still give a push and saying that the state could help Ashland out a lot more than it's not doing now. And that includes the representatives and Jack and Karen, since they both live, one of them lives here, Karen does, that she can actually make this town a little more her speed And I know that the community center, I have read a lot about the community center lately, and we are an Asian community, and we could use the help for that and for other reasons down the road. That's it for now.
All right, thanks, Mark. All right. I don't see any other questions, so I'll move on to Article 5, which is a transfer to our OPEB trust, OPEB being other post-employment benefits, essentially retiree health insurance. And this is part of our plan that we utilize to basically address this long-term obligation that we now have to maintain on the books. So what this aspect of our OPEB plan is that so for every new municipal employee we bring on, we pay their what's called the annual required contribution, basically their OPEB contribution amount. We've got a budget for it. And so we maintain, we go ahead and budget for that, and then we move that money to what's known as an OPEB trust. It's a special account set aside specifically for OPEB benefits, and that can only be used for OPEB benefits as well. So, and I'll have to say, the plan that we have, just as an aside, is working. So one of the best metric that you can use to determine how well you are catching up on your long-term obligation is something called funded ratio, which is, okay, how much of your obligation do you have set aside in funds? When we started this process about 10 years ago, we had 0. We're now over 10%. I believe we're closer to 12%. So we're making slow and steady progress, which is something that we like to see. It's something that our bond rating agencies like to see, bond rating agencies are very, very important to communities in terms of basically what's the best? Evaluating and providing an analysis or an assessment of our financial condition. It's essentially the right thing to do. And I think the plan, the way that we have it set up, is pretty well designed. And I think, again, the proof is in the pudding, just seeing where we started and where we are. We are making slow but steady, we're catching up slowly but steadily on our obligation. So any questions related to that? Oh, wow. Okay. Gosh, we're 25% of the way through. I've been the one talking mostly, so yeah, we got a while. So it'll be a while. Article 6, annual consent article, standard article that we do every year, and it basically is some housekeeping items in terms of grant program authorization and contracts and lease purchase agreements. But probably the most substantive piece of this article are what we call revolving funds and the authorization of certain revolving funds, which allow us to take in money and spend money on certain services. And basically those are outlined in the warrant, what those revolving funds are, what they're used for, and also what the caps and the limitations are as well. Any questions related to Article 6? Okay, moving on to Article 7, which is another annual consent article, but this time it's specifically for Community Preservation Act funds. Again, this is something that we have to do every year, which basically says, okay, this is the amount of money that we're anticipating bringing in from the Community Preservation Act surcharge that goes on taxes as well as from the state. And then it also, at the same time, authorizes specific bond payments that have been previously authorized from town meeting for specific things like construction of the ball fields, purchases of properties such as Warren Woods. Specifically, there are, I believe it's 4 items that we have bonds for. Yes, so one being the Oak Street bond payment, which actually should be coming up. That should be ending actually in a couple of years. 28. the athletic fields, which should actually be coming up in a few years as well. And then the Warren Woods bond payment. And we've got about 5 more years to go on that one as well. So, and excuse me, the Valentine estate is also part of that CPA portion. Any questions on CPA? The consent article on CPA, Article 7. Okay, moving on. Article 8 is to appropriate Community Preservation Act funds for the creation of the Ashland Arboretum. Ashland Arboretum is formerly known as Cadillac Paint. Those of you that have been in town for a while, and especially if you live over on the eastern side of town, 126 Elliott Street, are probably very familiar with the Cadillac Paint property. For many years, it sat abandoned, overgrown with some dilapidated buildings. Over the course of decades, a lot of work has been done to start cleaning up that property, cleaning up some contamination. And ultimately in 2017, we made a real, basically, full court press, if you will, on basically getting that property to a place where it could become a park. And so that meant, at that time, taking acquisition of the property, which we took by eminent domain. And also, as part of that, we were able to negotiate the forgiveness of an almost $400,000 lien from the Mass Department of Environmental Protection for cleanup efforts that they had done. Additionally, we got some more grant funds as well as a town meeting appropriation to clean up the property and take down those really ugly eyesore of buildings that they were. But since that time, a lot of work has gone into the planning and creation of this arboretum concept. And those of you that aren't familiar with arboretums, they're really, I guess you could say, parks that are really designed to highlight vegetation, things like trees, shrubs, ground cover, that is, typically it's native to the region. I've seen some that deal with more exotic and non-native type of plants, but this would be specifically for native plants. We worked with a young lady who graduated from Ashland High recently and is a student at Cal Berkeley, Erica Grassberger, who did a design for this project. And working with our staff, including Alvaro Esparza and Becca Solomon, Sophia, Beth, they've all contributed to working on this project and designing this project, as well as Ed Hart. I can't forget Ed Hart, whose passion has been Cadillac Paint. But anyway, this is for up to $500,000 to basically finish that project and bring it to life, which I anticipate will be done this year and next year. So we're really looking forward to that. Once it's going to be done, it's a nice park with walking trails. Again, different types of vegetation. People will be able, it's really kind of an educational area as well, where people can learn about the different plants and species that are there. So, I mean, when you look, I think of things in terms of storylines a lot, and so when you think of the story of Cadillac Paint and where it was a few years ago and where it's going to be next year, it really is a remarkable story. You're going from a place that was deeply contaminated, heavily contaminated, to being cleaned up and to now being a site of ecological preservation and really a celebration of like I said, vegetation that's native to the region. So really looking forward to that. Wow. Yeah, we got some young visitors here. So it's awesome. Any questions related to that? I almost forgot questions.
It won't be negative. Again, so in 119 minutes, you really get bored of me after a while.
I
Yes.
doubt more.
Yes. Before Ed Hart, that place would never moved an inch off the danger list. But Ed Hart, with his distinguished and neighborhood proudness and pride, did bring it to fruition to get it worked on to where it is now. We thank the EPA for their help, and thank the government that is pushing forward still this.
Yeah.
You can't forget that the original, the building was cracked, broken down fence, a lot of discoloration on the ground.
It was that nice green color. Remember that, Mark?
Yeah, it gave the rival to Nyanza. And now that it's where it is now, to this Warren article, Ed, the main source of bringing this forward, was the positive influence to where it is now, to where it's going to be going, and it should be voted up and down with no problem.
Thank you for your support, Mark. Article 9 is an appropriation of CPA funds for digitization. Oh boy, I knew I was going to have a hard time with this one. Digitization, had to say it very, very slowly, of documents, again, for historic preservation. This was brought forward by our town clerk, Cindy Livingstone. Jen, would you like to talk a little bit about this project? I know you love talking about it.
So this project is for up to $110,000, and it will be bringing a vendor that will come in and help us archive, so go through all of the documentation that we have in our vault. They'll help us organize and then also put that on electronic, so hopefully we're going to actually move some of the information to our website, so it would be searchable, and then also preserving on microfiche, I think is the right word. So that's actually how you have to preserve some of the documents that we're required to keep. But there'll be old, there's some birth certificates, for obviously we have death certificates so people can do some research. And so the goal is that we'll bring some of that's been living in the archives, and we have to sort of sift through all of the information and make it actually usable and accessible to the town.
Can you say digitization to
No,
microfiche?
No.
Come on, try.
No, I intentionally skipped that word. I was like, electronic.
You did that really well. You sure you want to leave? Come on. All right. Any questions related to this one? Yeah. Oh, Mark, I could have guessed.
Yep. Real quick and short, from microfilm to digitalization, we're in the right time of the century to do this. Thank you.
There you go, Mark. That should go on a T-shirt, my friend. So Article 10, it's another appropriation of CPA funds for additional money for dog park site improvements, sponsored by the Community Preservation Committee. Jen, you have been working so hard on this project for a long time, so I think it's only right that you speak to it.
So this is for additional funds up to $60,000. Prior to preparing for town meeting, we actually went out to bid for the dog park, the construction of the dog park, and that came in significantly higher than anticipated, and part of that really has to do with a lot of the stormwater upgrades, and our initial conceptual design didn't really take into consideration the permit that we would need for stormwater, and then doing a little bit additional work to the site. And then also we are receiving $250,000 grant from the Stanton grant, and they have some requirements like shade structures, water bubblers, and all of that has really increased over the number of years that we've been working on with the estimate that we've been using. And so we have a solid number now. This would allow us to have a proper contingency for the construction, then also purchase the structure directly to make sure that people who are using this park will also have the ability to be shaded when it's in most use in the summertime.
Any questions? Oh, Rob, you tricked me. I thought Rob was going to get up. Some questions. Seeing none, I'll move on to the next one, which is Article 11, which is accept Section 40 of Chapter 653 of the Acts of 1989. Very specific legislation. And what this legislation would allow us to do by accepting it is it would allow the assessor's office to adjust their, basically when they capture new growth, instead of having to wait till the following year, it would allow us to capture it in the current fiscal year. Many reasons for doing that. Very, very technical, very, very, I guess you could even say bureaucratic. But it would allow any new construction or improvements that qualify as new growth to be added to the value in the first 6 months of the year. It also reduces the lag time that occurs between the construction of these improvements and then also the taxation. Like I said, otherwise we have to wait until the following year. Actually benefits residents as well, because if there's any kind of damage that would decrease the property value, it would also be captured during that time period as opposed to the resident having to wait until the following year. So obviously we would hope that that wouldn't, necessarily happen to, for somebody to take advantage of it. But yeah, that would be a benefit for residents as well. Any questions? Great. Okay, moving on to Article 12, which is to authorize a water treatment capital project, which is, again, the previously mentioned ozone filtration system. There's a lot of, there's a lot of movement going on around here in Town Hall. Gotcha. Sorry for that aside. But anyway, for those of you that are wondering, we had approved $4 million previously to do this project. Once a certain level of engineering was done and we got revised cost estimates, we saw that it was going to be significantly more expensive. And so that is what this authorization is for. It's to adjust that appropriation. Like I mentioned during the budget article, this has been factored into the budget. That's reflected in the increase that you see in the water fund, the water appropriation. And we do think that as of now, the rates can handle that. So wouldn't necessarily see an increase in rates associated with this year. Hey, Claudia. Any questions? Yes.
How old in this town are the aqua filters in this town?
Oh, let me see if I have that. Do you know right off the top of your head, JD? Don't know it right off the top of my head, Mark. I was just seeing if I had my backup material. Yeah, I don't have that with me, Mark, but I'll have it at town meeting.
The reason why I'm asking that is the upgrade. There has not been an upgrade for those aqua filters at all throughout the town. This has been there to help distribute water lines. How about the, do we still have any wells in this town?
I'm sorry, say that again?
Wells, W-E-L-L-S.
Yeah, we still use the wells.
And how old are them?
So, I believe those were built when the water treatment plant was built. So you're talking around 2000, so 25 years. So, and if the ozone system had not, if there hasn't been any replacement of them since that time, they'd be 25 years old as well.
That's all for now.
Thank you. Hey, Carlton.
Hello, Michael. Hello, Jen. How are you?
Good.
I'm Carlton Phelps, 161 America Boulevard. So I just want a little bit more information about the transfer from the General Stabilization Fund. You probably are doing this speech over and over and over again, different meetings, but just a little bit more clarity on those monies. Also, I believe there was a transfer last year that was similar. If you just talk about that. and kind of the moving forward plan of why those funds are being transferred.
Sure, sure. I actually went over it previously, but I'm happy to kind of,
And sorry, I came in a little late today, so I just wanted to, just briefly go over that,
yeah, so.
cover that.
So you're correct. So looking at that, just going back to Article 2 again, which Mr. Phelps was referencing, which is, again, that $2.2 million transfer from the stabilization fund. Yes, again, that is being used because right now, the revenue that we have is not, the recurring revenue that we have is not enough to sustain the increase in expenses that we are experiencing. And some of those that I detailed in a couple of articles later when we were talking about the budget, related to things like health insurance, which is going up 12%, unemployment insurance, which is going up 60%. You are correct in that this is the second year in a row we've had to do a similar treatment for the budget to make sure that we were able to go ahead and fund services at their current level and not have to make any kind of cuts. Unfortunately, we're not able to make any kind of adds either. So that's one thing I really didn't hammer home when I talked about this earlier. This is just to sustain our existing services. There's no additional adds really associated with this. The school department, they have some strategic adds associated with their budget. At the same time, they've got some decreases as well, which help offset that. And Superintendent Adams, I'm sure, would be able to answer a lot of those questions in a lot more detail than I am over at town meeting, or even if you reached out to him before town meeting. Your question about what the plan is moving forward is, I think that is, I don't mean to deflect it, but that is going to be a community conversation that needs to happen. We need to make a decision as a town whether or not we want to sustain the services that we currently offer, maybe even enhance those services, and are we willing to pay the price associated with maintaining those services or increasing those services, or are we going to make a conscious decision to cut what we currently have? I think as that conversation evolves, and that conversation will probably happen over the next year, I think, because we will need to find a solution in anticipation of the FY27 budget. I think you will hear a lot of conversation about what we have done as a community to reduce expenses, to be efficient, to find efficiencies in different departments as well as overall within the town. And I think at that point it's going to be the taxpayers' decision as to whether or not they want to, again, pass an override essentially to maintain or increase services, or if they would rather cut services. Welcome. Okay. I think said we were at Article 12, and now we're at Article 13, which is to authorize borrowing for a water main replacement. Again, I had gone through this a little bit more at during the Article 4 discussion, but this would basically approve an additional $3 million to the $1 million already authorized to do water main replacement work in various locations of the town. And I know one of the locations that we were looking at specifically and doing first would be the Union Street, Fountain Street intersection. We did put that work out to bid. It was extremely expensive, a lot more than what we had set aside for the project. So this would help fund that project as well as some additional ones as well. So any questions related to this? Okay. Infrastructural work is unfortunately expensive and necessary. Article 14 is funding for our what we call our I&I program, our inflow and infiltration program. Now, this is an appropriation of $1.2 million through the MWRA, and that's the Massachusetts Water Resources Authority, I&I Local Financial Assistance Program. And so what that is, that program provides funding for municipalities through both a grant and a no-interest loan. Trying to remember if it's 75-25 for a grant. Yeah, 75-25 grant versus loan. But anyway, we are looking to take advantage of that this year to make some inflow and infiltration improvements into our town sewer system. That reminds me, some people might not know what inflow and infiltration is, so I'll try to give as succinct an explanation as possible. So the way our sewer pipes are put together, or all sewer pipes are put together, basically it can allow groundwater to seep into those pipes, and since we pay for the amount of effluent that is flowing through those pipes, it's more expensive for us when additional groundwater seeps in through those pipes and gets transported through Framingham and then gets treated at Deer Island. Again, these are costs that we have to pay. So by finding where these leaks are and sealing them up, we're not only helping our environment because we're keeping more of our groundwater here in our current basin, but we're also saving money as well. So because we're not paying for essentially effluent that is not effluent. So hopefully that makes sense to everybody. Any questions?
Mark Sony again, 119 Main Street. This I working, I don't know how to question this, so I'm going to go real slow and formulate. If it's a state road, does the state help to pay for it?
No. Well, wait, I shouldn't say that so quickly. As this is a grant program and a loan, no-interest loan program through the MWRA, the state is essentially subsidizing that work, yes.
And if it's a town-owned road, does that grant still get it from the state?
Yes.
Hey, something from the state. Wow. Amazing. So, on the, where it says Finance Committee recommendations, in exact unlayman terms, what does phase 14 and 16 mean?
Means we've already done phases 1 through 13 and phase 15.
And what will be 14 and, what would 14 and 16 actually be in name? What
14
would they,
and
what
16.
are the projects that's 14 through 16?
Do we have that? Yeah, I mean, there is a whole list of projects, of places where we would be doing work. Oh, that's not in my, but we do have. It's a lot of streets, Mark. It's a lot. I'm not going to go through all of them because it's literally a page and a half of type 8 font.
Okay, then I'll break it down for you. Is it on this side of town or on the western part of the town?
Oh, it's all across town. Yeah, different, yeah. I don't think there's any part of town that is not represented here.
So if what's a do pass and once the state helps with that grant, the people that live in any part of the town that has this, they want to know what are they working on and where.
Yes, so we will communicate what that work, when that work's going to happen, and which neighborhoods are going to be affected.
Okay.
Thanks, Mark. All right, moving on to Article 15. We're starting to get into bylaws and zoning laws. Article 15 is a bylaw to establish a new local historic district. Joan Gonfriday is here from the Historical Commission. And Joan, if you don't mind, I'll just kind of take a shot at summarizing this, and I'll give you an opportunity to say, you know, a few words if you want to on behalf of the commission. So, oh yeah, Jim Nielsen's there too, yeah. So the local historic district, if this were to pass, it would establish a boundary around downtown, certain properties, I believe it's 35 properties, that would then encompass what's known as a local historic district. And there's a prescribed process by which a local historic district is established in Massachusetts, and town meeting is one of those steps. Prior to that, you have to have essentially a study committee, which has been formed, made the recommendation, I believe, and the Historical Commission is sponsoring this. I'm keeping it very, very generic right now, Joan, just to let you, actually, if you want to come on up, or Jim, if you want to say anything about some more details, I think it'd probably be more appropriate for you two to say something than me try to kind of articulate your position on it. I don't see Jim raising his hand, Joan, so I think he's really putting you.
Well, I was going to
putting
say
you
I'll
up
defer
there.
to Jim, but
Yeah.
Joan Gonfrati, Historic Commission. The Historic Commission's been working on this for 2 years. What happens is, as you said, there was a study committee created who looked at the town and said the most practical area to look at for a historical district is the downtown area. So we outlined that area and went to the state. The state asks you to do in a contiguous area, so that it goes from basically from the Ocean House down to the post office and back. Some part of down a little bit on Homer Ave, a little bit on to the railroad station, down a little bit on Front Street, and it encompasses a lot of the really older buildings in the town. The only way to preserve historical buildings is an historical district. People think that the National Register does that. It does not, unfortunately. It's a list, but it does not, it's an honorary list. So the only way to preserve the buildings is with this local historic district. And it will allow a commission to be formed out of people from the town, an architect, a realtor, some of the people that live in the area, in the district, some of the business owners. They will be appointed by the select board, and they will oversee the district. So if someone wants to make major changes to a building, they would go to the commission, just like they go to a planning board or to any other board in town for approval. And they would go to this commission that was formed, and they would work with the owner or the developer, whoever comes to them, and to try to keep the character of the area and the character of the building. It doesn't mean you can't sell your building. It doesn't mean you can't do anything you want inside the building. This is only for the facade from the front of the building. So as you're looking from the street, what you can see. You can add on to the back. You can do solar panels. You can do mini splits. It doesn't do landscaping. It doesn't tell you what color you can paint it. It's just trying to keep some sense of time and place in the town. Some sense of when you look around. I think Stacy Spies said it best to me to make me understand. And when you stand in the middle of town and you look around, what do you see? Do you see the history of the town, or do you see these big, huge buildings, or what can you see from that area? From that area is what you're talking about preserving, basically. I'm going to defer to Jim to see if he wants to add anything. I'm not sure.
That's a pretty good
But
summary.
we are looking, obviously, for support from not only the town boards, from the people. We really hope that people feel as strongly as we do about preserving our history in town. So, thank you.
I believe this takes a simple majority.
No, it takes 2/3.
It's 2/3?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
There was no way to raise my hand or unmute myself. So I'm sorry, I would have come in earlier. Hi, Jim Nielsen. Still not showing me. But
We can hear you, Jim.
you can hear me, okay. Hi, Jim Nielsen, 35 Ramblewood Drive, Ashland. I'm the chairman of the Historical Commission, and Joan did a very good job of explaining this. So I would just add that this doesn't cost the town anything. And it's also something that we have to do if we want to preserve certain buildings downtown, because even if you're on the National Historic Register, there's no guarantee that somebody can come in someday, buy it and take it down. And that includes John Stone's, that includes the church, it includes the old railroad station. So there's many reasons for doing this. Ashland's one of the only towns in the area that does not have a local historic district. People think we do because there's 2 signs on either end of the street saying you're entering the historical district, but you're really not. Those are just signs. So this is an official thing. The town votes for it, hopefully, and we'll have a little more say in what goes on in our downtown. The citizens of Ashland will. So thank you. If anybody has any questions, the bylaw, the guidebook, and suggested guidances on what would happen with the zone, the district, are up on our website, and so is our email. So if anybody has any questions, please, by all means, please reach out, and I'll try to do the best we can to answer them before the town meeting. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim. And Jim, you weren't able to raise your hand?
No, for some reason on Zoom, I don't think anybody can. There's no prompt. You try to do it, it says you're muted, and it says you can't undo the mute. You can't undo the video either.
So when you go down to the menu where it says the react, that's on your.
It says reactions and does nothing when you hit it. Oh, now it says raise hand. Something just changed. When I was hitting it before, I couldn't get my hand to raise. Okay, there we go. There's a
big thumbs up.
Yeah, thumbs up. So now it's working. Okay, just me and technology again.
That's okay. I just want to make sure, though.
I don't know if anybody else is having that problem.
Yeah, so we have a number of people on Zoom, and so now that we're sure, like the raise hand feature, I'll just take a pause here, and if anybody on Zoom had any questions related to some of the previous warrant articles, feel free to raise your hand. Sorry, we're having fun with technology here, but give you a few seconds to.
There's always something.
That's for sure. But I'm not seeing anything.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Great synopsis. Thank you. Okay. So moving on to Article 16, which is a land taking for multimodal trail, sponsored by the Select Board. So this is a warrant article to purchase, acquire, or take by eminent domain property on Pond Street that has been identified by the Upper Charles Trail Committee as being important pieces of property to the facilitation of the construction of the Upper Charles Trail, which is a planned trail route that would essentially bisect the town and connect the towns of Hopkinton and the town, going through Ashland and connecting with the towns of Sherburne and the city of Framingham. That would create one large network of trails. So the Upper Charles Trail Committee was successful about a year ago, actually, in pursuing a grant, and successfully did secure a grant for $300,000 to purchase this property. At the time that we had engaged with the property owner, and he had encouraged us to continue the dialogue with him. Unfortunately, as we received word that we were awarded the grant and we're trying to make plans for this. Unfortunately, we weren't, although we made several attempts, we weren't able to continue our discussions with the property owner until very recently, when he realized that this would be on the town meeting warrant. And so he has engaged the town again. I think that's probably the best way to say it. I believe the Upper Charles Trail Committee is actually having a discussion with him tomorrow to talk about maybe some alternative measures as opposed to just doing a taking. So we will see how that evolves between now and town meeting. I think that's probably the best we can do in terms of an explanation right now. So a lot more will be determined tomorrow. So, any questions related to Article 16? Okay. Moving on to Article 17, which is a zoning bylaw that regulates accessory dwelling units in Ashland. So accessory dwelling units, things like in-law apartments, it's a fancy name, a fancy way of saying in-law apartments. They were allowed in Ashland before by a special permit, but the state recently passed laws that required every community to allow ADUs as of right. So in order to do that and to have some level of regulation on what those ADUs look like and what when they would be allowed and just some of the parameters around the ADUs, our town planner at the time, Peter Matchak, worked with the planning board to develop this zoning bylaw for accessory dwelling units. I don't, does anything you want to add to this? Trying to have the planning board have their hearing on it? Okay, and do you remember when that meeting?
Their last meeting, I believe. So they had their meeting. The building commissioner has also reviewed it and had conversations with the planning board just in terms of implementation.
Okay, and legal counsel has reviewed and made sure it's it meets the four corners of the law. So yeah, if you want to look at the last planning board with the hearing, I'm sure they would have that information. But any questions related to the ADU bylaw, Article 17? Yes, Mark?
And the first part is no, there's no planning board meeting tomorrow night. The state. With their understanding of not every community in the Commonwealth has the same ideas that they do, this town is being processually screwed. Can't say it a different way. The state wants to get involved with housing, Mass Housing Committee themselves is saying that this state is in a housing crisis. Can't be in a housing crisis if they don't stop housing for every diversity of people. So I'm kind of looking at it,
Bless you.
I'm being careful on my words too, because I've been fighting this for 20-something years. Zoning bylaws are being chewed up and spit out by the state for not respecting them at all. When your last select board meeting was here, the representatives were here, I was not mixing words. I still feel the same way, that they are just not looking at this town as the same as part of the Commonwealth, and we have 3, 5, 50 towns that we can put one roughshod on, and Ashland is a small little dot and not being respected. There's 2 more articles. I'll continue from there.
Well, Mark, did you have a question?
I've been not saying the question, but I'm in the idea of an opinion that if we do question this, the Mass Housing is just going to beat it down and it's going to pass.
Thank you. All right, any other questions on Article 17? So Article 18 is an update to our floodplain bylaw. And recently there were changes, I think, made to the FEMA floodplain maps, and so this is to make sure that we're in compliance with that. Keep that pretty short and sweet. Any questions? A question or a comment, Mark?
It's going to be a question, mixed comment, and this is.
Because you know where I'm going to go next, right? Go ahead.
I'm breathing it in deep.
Okay.
The state, in the way, this is the comment, again, of the bylaw, this way, in state in the way of the conservation by purposes. And the playing is conservation rules themselves. And we had nothing that has gone wrong, and it's been working together. My question is, why would the state dare to dip their toes in the floodplain when they can just drown in everywhere else?
Thanks, Mark. Any other questions? Creatively asked questions like Mark is getting so good at. So Article 19 is another update from our planning board, just to update some of the site plan reviews, site plan review procedures. And Jen, I mean, this is really, it's a really small change, right, just to clean it up.
It's really just to align the number of days with the MGL 40A. It's really just aligning the days. I think previously we had 30 days and it's just changed to 65.
65,
It's a real,
correct.
it's a cleanup.
Okay. Yeah. So, any questions? No comments? Any questions?
Thank you for framing it that way.
I'll try my best, Mark.
People gotta know me by now that I always been a bylaw worker since I got the what's it called? The
Form-based code.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Ever since, that feels good. We talked about it in sustainability a little bit, for a couple of seconds last night. The question is, the planning board is having the discussion about it. But why is the state trying to get involved in this, by notification shall be provided in compliance with Mass General 40A? That's housing, isn't it?
Well, it's planning.
That's
Planning
planning
and
for
zoning,
houses.
yeah.
If the state wants to get involved in zoning bylaw, let them get it economically brain trusted, and maybe they can understand that Asha needs to get off the property tax.
Thanks, Mark. All right, last but not least, the dog kennel bylaw. Actually, again, this is one sponsored by our town clerk. So, Jen, would you like to?
So this is really just to come in compliance again with a new state law called Ollie's Law that is really in response to a dog that passed away in the care of a kennel. So just sort of tightening up our inspections and also how we permit dogs for kennel licenses versus individual dog licenses. And so we already had a bylaw, just the changes made are just really to come into compliance with the state law.
Okay, any questions? Take us home, Mark.
I'll take you home. My first question is on the Zoom screen, right in the middle. I'm looking at that little purple icon. If you turn around, you can see it.
I can see it right there.
Yeah. You got to see one thing. Got an idea that we might be doing advertising. Doing town meeting itself next week. I said my questions here, my comments tonight. I'm going to be sitting quietly and let the other people speak for me, speak for the rest of the town, because I have done it for the years. It's time for me to take a little vacation.
Thanks, Mark. Well, we appreciate your advocacy, Mark. All right. Well, folks, that wraps it up for the warrant for the May 7th, 2025 annual town meeting, again at Ashland High School at 7 p.m. 20 articles. I expect some robust discussion. As people might have mentioned, or you might have heard, this is actually Jen's, it's her last town manager forum here, and it's going to be her last town meeting after serving the town for 9 years. Jen will be departing the day the day after town meeting. And but Jen, it's been a pleasure over the last 9 years doing these with you, and you know, I think we couldn't have done these without you, and couldn't do town meeting without you. For those that don't know, Jen, I mean, prepares the warrant. She basically handles all the logistics. She does a lot of stuff on the back ends that people don't see, but are just extremely critical to democracy and the running of a local government. So I hope it's been as much fun for you as it has been for me. Awesome. So again, everybody, please exercise your right to participate in your local government. These are decisions that are yours, not just staff's, not just boards. They're yours as registered voters in the community. You have the ability to shape what this town is and will be. And that is something that I think a lot of people still don't understand and don't know. I'd say about 6 or 7 years ago, we really tried to kind of educate people on their power and the power that they have as individuals in an open town meeting form of government, and we saw a good response. Unfortunately, COVID put a damper on that, just like a lot of things, but it didn't erase the rights of people here in Ashland to come and participate in democracy, and again, make decisions that are important for the future of the town. So that's my spiel for people to come to town meeting. Again, hope to see you next Wednesday, 7 o'clock at Ashland High School in the auditorium for town meeting. So without further ado, I hope everybody has a good night. Enjoy this beautiful evening.